and welcome to the Eurogamer show.
We got over our fight from last week. We decided there are more important things than arguing over video games.
Yeah, and Johnny's copy of MGS5 arrived in the post.
That helped considerably. Coming up this week!
Johnny asks why nobody's talking about the Mad Max game, as if we all didn't already know, and Chris goes over the weekend reviews.
Before Ian gets the fun job as usual and plays Press X to not die.
Johnny, you know how Chris is sitting right over there and wouldn't do these links with us?
Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Let's just not introduce this section, it'll be really funny.
You do realise that in saying this you are effectively...
Shh, just this'll show him.
Hello! Bertie wrote a cool thing about a guy that sent his game to Valve in a briefcase, like an actual briefcase, in the hopes of landing a job on that team, and although that didn't quite go to plan, that very game, which is called Project X, has now been greenlit on Steam, and hopefully maybe this will launch a career in game development via a different path. It's a really good read. Deus Ex annoyed its own fans with some good old-fashioned pre-order nonsense. Star Wars Battlefront did the same, this time with the confirmation that they won't have a server browser but will rather rely on skill-based matchmaking for the multiplayer. What else? The FTC, or the Federal Trade Commission, if you want to show off, ruled that Machinima, which is a YouTube network, have deceived its own audience by not disclosing when its YouTubers have been paid by Microsoft to say nice things about the Xbox One and its games. Now, Machinima have been prohibited from doing this again in the future. Good, and must have taken a hit to their reputation, but more than that, hopefully this will act as some kind of turning point for how paid videos are handled on YouTube. The website as a whole has a real problem with this. It's not even just limited to games. And although naivety could and has been used as an excuse in the past, I don't think that's going to hold quite as much weight from this point onwards. Hopefully. Wow, this got heavy, didn't it? And while our last story isn't great either, following a huge backlash online, including a video posted by Jim Sterling's son, a game called Playing History 2 Slave Trade saw an update that removed a minigame that has been described as Slave Tetris. Yeah, so reading the developer's response and accompanying apology, you can see there is a genuine message that's trying to be put across here, and there's some decent discussion about that actually in the comments on Wes's story. But it's hard to look at the gameplay itself without cringing. The bright colours, the cartoon mouse, the fact that it's referred to as Slave Tetris. Yeah, well, whether you think there's a worthwhile message that's been lost in all the controversy, or if you think this is just incredibly insulting, the minigame has now been removed. But it does start a conversation that's worth having about how video games treat historical events, particularly uncomfortable historical events. I've been playing some Company Heroes 2 recently, which itself received a lot of flack for how they talked about the Second World War from the Soviet perspective, and they definitely didn't get it right either. One of the problems, maybe, is that games usually have to be fun, or feel like they need to be fun, and it's hard to talk about certain topics, particularly things like the slave trade, and also have a game that is entertaining to play. That doesn't quite balance. Maybe games don't always need to be entertaining. When you look at something like Papers, Please, obviously not based on a historical event, at least not directly. Part of the reason why that works is because doing the paperwork isn't fun. It's stressful and it rushes you and it makes you do horrible decisions, and that way you can kind of relate to the topic it's talking about. I think if Papers, Please involved a game of Tetris, I'd feel a lot different about it.
So how did you get on with Metal Gear Solid 5 then?
Didn't get very far, to be honest. I did the prologue and that was a bit of a slog, so I just switched to Mad Max.
Yeah, I forgot that was a thing.
It's funny you should say that. Here comes a pre-scripted segment in which I discuss that very topic.
It's almost like I knew that.
So yeah, Mad Max came out this week, on the very same day as Metal Gear Solid 5 no less, which is, you know, lunacy. You just don't go up against something that massive. Poor Max never had a chance. They even had their release dates revealed on the exact same day, so Warner wasn't able to dodge a bullet and delay the game for a few weeks without losing face. That, or they decided to bury it.
You're the driver.
But is that the sole reason no one's talking about it? If the Phantom Pain didn't exist, would we all be tearing around the waist in our souped-up muscle cars? I'm not convinced. All in all, Mad Max is an interesting package, and it's clearly been put together with a serious level of competency, but it's just not a package that's easy to get excited about. For one thing, it's super brown. Now, that's to be expected from most video games, of course, and especially one set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland like this one, but expectations can't change the fact it looks very, very drab. Explosions lend some much needed colour, but then they're very fleeting and you can't make everything explode all the time. Similarly, while car customization adds a decent amount of depth, allowing you to really commit to building your car and buy into the idea that it's your masterpiece, but functionally it can only do so much. At the end of all things, you're still driving a car from point A to point B / into other cars so they'll go kaboom. Mad Max has also divided opinion among critics. It's currently sitting at 70 on Metacritic, not that we actually care about numbers these days, only shiny, shiny badges. Obviously I'm not saying the opinions of critics are the be-all and end-all, but for some people a mixed reception will be enough to put them off making a purchase. But maybe, just maybe, I'm actually wrong. Mad Max does have a feeling of Shadow of Mordor about it, both in the gameplay and in the way it sort of just snuck out rather than being released to massive fanfare. Shadow of Mordor was a bit of a sleeper hit. A massive one, in fact. Everyone assumed it was going to be a bit nothingy, and then it turned out to be amazing. So should we be talking about Mad Max? Are we doing it and ourselves a disservice in not buying it? I'm not all the way convinced, but maybe, which is a very roundabout way of saying I'm part of the problem. Bully for me.
I mean, you gotta give them props. They're going up against one of the biggest releases of the year. That's pretty ballsy.
They're not the only ones either. Some people took on Until Dawn with their own little indie game.
That's cool. Does it have a good title?
Press X to not die.
No then.
Oh my god, what the hell was that?
Spooky interactive horror movie Until Dawn was released recently, but at £47.99 in my local game store, it's not hard to imagine that price being slightly out of the average gamer's budget. Fear not though, I found a suitable alternative that's a lot more wallet friendly, in the form of Press X to Not Die, a satirical FMV game that's just been released on the Xbox Live Indie Game Marketplace.
Come on, I can do this!
Just like Until Dawn, the majority of the gameplay in Press X to Not Die revolves around quick-time events and dialogue choices. But instead of focusing on scares, Press X to Not Die chooses to embrace the camp ridiculousness of early 90s FMV games.
Oh my god, Matt! Matt? I didn't press X in time.
A full playthrough is only going to last you about 15 to 20 minutes max, but during that time you'll be able to slap a clown, get shot in the nuts with a staple gun, and best of all, ask a scientist if she likes chocolate.
I love chocolate.
It's not the most amazing game, but its lovably dopey humour will give you some genuine belly laughs. And best of all, it'll only set you back £1.99. Press X to buy, more like.
And that's freezing my toothbrush.
Alright, that's it from us for this week. Thanks for subscribing, and please do let the like button hit you on your way out.
Bye.
Mitch, here's the dog you brought back. Bit of a troublemaker. Not sure about the breed, though. He'll get bigger? Uh-huh. Like this. You know, I can look after him.